What's happening, everybody? It's your old pal Grizno, and welcome to another Battlefield 1 weapon review video. Now, before we get into this one, I need to tell you all about a slight change that I've made to the format of this series. I originally planned to do each weapon variant individually because I figured it would mean that I could make more content, but now that I've been playing the game for a solid month, I really got a feel on most of the weapons available. I kind of realized a lot of these weapons do not have a whole lot of differences between them, between their variants to warrant a video on every single variant individually. Basically, I realized if I were to do each variant individually, there would end up being a lot of me repeating myself about a weapon and just a lot of redundant information in general. So the change I'm making is that from now on, we're just going to look at one weapon and its 3 different variants that are available in one single video. Sound good? Alrighty then. And that brings us to the star of the show this week, which I'm sure you probably figured out by now is the Automatico M1918. This SMG, available for the assault class, is an absolute beast and is easily my favorite assault weapon. As we'll see in the, coming up in this video, the Automatico is a close quarters master and probably one of the few weapons that can compete with a shotgun in CQB. So if you like a rushing, aggressive playstyle, then I guarantee this is the weapon for you. If you'd rather not use a shotgun, I mean. So let's take a look at the stat chart for the Automatico M1918s, starting with the stats that each variant shares. Each variant of the Automatico will do a max damage of 23, only inside 3 meters though. Wow, that is not very far at all. After 3 meters, damage will begin to drop off, and it ends at 38 meters, where it will do its minimum damage of 12. Magazine size is 25, reload times are 2.1 seconds for the short reload and 2.8 seconds for the long. The Automatico's muzzle velocity is 380 meters per second, and it fires at a blistering rate of 900 rounds per minute, making it the fastest firing weapon in the game, aside from that crazy Sentry SMG, obviously. As far as where the 3 variants differ, for this weapon, it's all in the recoil and bullet spread values. So let's highlight those real quick. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of information contained in those last 2 little boxes of the Simthic stat chart, and they can be a bit confusing. So rather than just read them off, like just read off all those numbers and bore you into clicking off the video, I'm just going to explain it all in layman's terms. So the 3 different variants of the Automatico M1918 are the factory variant, storm, and trench. These variants all have slightly different recoil amounts and slightly different bullet spread amounts. In addition, they also recover from the recoil slightly differently. When you boil it all down, it goes like this. The storm variant has the lowest amount of recoil, while the factory and the trench variants have slightly higher recoil. The trench variant has the lowest amount of bullet spread, and the factory and storm have slightly more bullet spread. And finally, the factory variant recovers from recoil and spread the fastest, while the storm and the trench recover from both at a slightly lower rate. So what does all this mean? Well, it's going to come down to playstyle. The trench variant is going to be the best for the run and gun hipfire enthusiast, and believe me, this Automatico can be fired from the hip 100% of the time, not a problem with that. The storm variant has the least amount of recoil, so if you prefer to ADS all the time, then you should probably choose the storm variant. And the factory, well, I mean, the thing that it has going for it is that it has the fastest recovery from recoil and bullet spread, but honestly, if you have either the storm or trench variants unlocked, I would definitely recommend using one of those over the factory variant, because I would just rather have either lower recoil or spread to begin with than to have a faster recovery rate from either of those. But that's not to say that the factory variant isn't good at all. It's still a great CQB weapon solely based on the basic statistics that all of these variants share. But if you ask me, I think the trench variant is the best because it's the most accurate of the 3 with the tighter bullet spread. The storm variant is definitely a viable option too, though, with less recoil, but I don't find the recoil that hard to manage. So for me, the trench variant is the winner, just by if only a hair. But let's shift the focus now to some of the good and the bad things about the Automatico M1918. And we might as well keep with the positive vibes, going here and talk about the good things to start. So obviously, like I mentioned, the best thing about the Automatico is that it is an absolute CQB beast that you can spray from the hip and be completely secure about rushing into gas clouds with. Its main strengths are its fast rate of fire and amazing hip fire capabilities. It's the perfect weapon for the balls to the wall rushing assault player. It's also got very quick reload times, and it is right on par with the other SMG in the assault class's arsenal, the MP18. In fact, it's actually a little faster than the MP18 on the long reload, and they share the same time for the short reload at 2.1 seconds. More evidence that the Automatico really excels in close quarters combat. Having fast reload times is key as well, since the Automatico's 900 round per minute rate of fire chews through 25 rounds in almost no time at all, so expect to be reloading a lot with this weapon. It fits right into my playstyle though, because since I came from sort of Call of Duty roots, I guess, I have that CRS disorder, you know, constant reload syndrome. I don't know what it is, but even if I fire off just one bullet, I feel like I need to reload. Is anyone else with me on that? But luckily, like I mentioned, the Automatico has very fast reload times, so it helps to soften the blow of having to reload this weapon so frequently. And one major tip I have when using this weapon, and it has to do with these reload times, is to make sure you have a good sidearm equipped, because I often find myself needing an extra bullet or two to finish someone off after maybe missing a few shots, which is kind of common for the Automatico since the factory and the trench variants have some pretty nasty recoil. So having a good pistol on your hip is essential as well. I would recommend something that deploys quickly and is also pretty decent firing from the hip. Revolvers can be useful too. You know, maybe you were only able to land 1 or 2 bullets and you need something with a little more kick to finish the guy off. I could totally see that happening pretty often too. But for myself, I like a pistol that fires quickly and deploys quickly, since most of the time when I need it, I'm already in the heat of a close quarters gunfight. You know what? I was just gonna shift my focus to the bad things about the Automatico when I realized something. The high rate of fire could actually be considered a strength and a weakness at the same time, you know, and or a weakness. I mean, yeah, it melts people in a matter of seconds, but that could also be detrimental if you're facing multiple enemies at once. The fact that the Automatico chews through its magazine so fast means that you really need to reload this weapon often, and if you're up against multiple enemies, this is not going to be something that will work in your favor. Now, it is possible to take out multiple enemies with one magazine, but you really need to be accurate with your shots, and I'd say probably the most you could possibly muster to take out would be 2 at a time. Any more than 2, you probably won't have enough ammo left in a single magazine to take out the third. However, this is why you need a good sidearm with you to bat the cleanup spot. It'll mean the difference between a ground rule double and a grand slam. Are these baseball analogies doing anything for you guys? Finally, the last negative thing that I'd have to say about the Automatico is that the recoil is rather intense, so you need to watch out for that. It is possible to counter the recoil, and I personally don't find it too difficult, but if you're someone who has a hard time with recoil countering, then I would recommend you use the Storm variant, as it has the least amount of recoil. Especially if you like to ADS a lot and you plan on ADSing with this weapon, definitely go with the Storm variant if that sounds like you at all. But if you want my vote on which variant is the best, I would have to say the Trench variant. I don't find the recoil too hard to counter on the Automatico, and I find that the lower amount of bullet spread is a greater advantage in my hands. The Trench variant is what I'm calling the AEK of Battlefield 1, because it really reminds me of it. The AEK was one of the more popular assault rifles in Battlefield 3 and 4, and I just find the recoil pattern sort of similar on the Automatico, as well as both are absolute bullet hoses. In summation, the Automatico M1918 SMG is the fastest firing weapon available in Battlefield 1 as of right now. It is a rusher's dream with a very high rate of fire and extremely good hipfire capabilities. Best suited for an aggressive rushing playstyle, and is also very handy for rushing into gas-filled rooms. So if you can feel confident firing this weapon from the hip almost all the time, but if you like to ADS, just be aware that the Automatico does have a lot of recoil. Of the three variants, I would say that the trench variant is probably the best with its tighter bullet spread, but the storm variant's reduced recoil is also always a viable option for you ADSers out there. Finally, the factory variant is not without its charm, as it recovers from recoil and bullet spread faster than its other two brothers. And that is going to wrap things up on this week's weapon review. I hope you guys enjoyed the change in format. I feel like comparing the three different variants in one video is going to be a lot more effective than, making a video on each variant individually. So I hope you're all on board with that. Let me know down in the comments of this video if there's a weapon in particular you'd like to see me review next week. And as always, if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to show it a little love, you can always give it a thumbs up. I'd very much appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you all in the near future. Peace.
Drop.